For over 2,000 years, the Vatican has stood as a symbol of faith, power, and divine authority. But behind the polished, marble walls and sacred chants lies another story, one whispered in the shadows, locked away in vaults, and buried beneath centuries of silence. What if the Vatican isn't just preserving religious tradition, but concealing technologies, testimonies, and relics that could rewrite history itself? Tonight, we peel back the curtain on some of the most chilling and controversial claims ever linked to the Church. Did the Vatican hide a UFO crash in Italy and secretly alert the US government before World War II? Is there truly a time machine buried in the archives, one that a priest used to watch the crucifixion of Christ? Why does the Vatican hold unverified relics, incorrupt bodies, and even fake mummies? And what if some of these secrets are directly connected to US intelligence, secret diplomatic deals, and even alleged extraterrestrial cooperation? We'll dive into the David Grush UFO revelations and Vatican links, the bizarre tale of the chronovisor, the unsettling death of Pope John Paul I, ancient texts, forbidden books, and a theory that the Vatican fabricated 300 years of history. But be warned, some stories are dismissed as myth until you realize how many pieces of the puzzle have been deliberately hidden from you. If you're fascinated by forbidden history, conspiracy truths, and suppressed knowledge, like this video, subscribe and tap the bell, because what we uncover next will haunt your curiosity. The Vatican may be the gatekeeper of faith, but tonight we're breaking into the vault of secrets. For centuries, the idea of unidentified flying objects, UFOs, was dismissed by governments, scholars, and the Church alike as science fiction, fantasy, or worse, delusion. But something changed, quietly, gradually. Today, what was once laughed off is now investigated by military task forces, debated in congressional hearings, and documented by fighter jet footage released by the Pentagon itself. And somehow, the Vatican keeps appearing on the edge of the story, silent, watchful, unwilling to confirm, yet never truly denying. Let's begin with one of the most explosive claims to date, David Grush's testimony. The whistleblower, David Grush and the Magenta UFO crash, 1933. David Grush isn't a random conspiracy theorist. He's a decorated U.S. Air Force intelligence officer who served on the Unidentified Aerial Phenomena, UAP, task force and held top-level security clearance. In 2023, he made headlines around the world with a chilling revelation. The Vatican had direct knowledge of a UFO crash in Italy before the start of World War II. According to Grush, in June 1933, a mysterious aircraft crashed near Magenta, a small town just west of Milan. The wreckage was unlike anything seen before. Not German, not Russian, not American, not human. Grush claims that Benito Mussolini, then the fascist leader of Italy, ordered it to be kept secret under a classified directive known as the RS-33 cabinet. A secret team of Italian scientists was formed to study the object. But what happened next is even more chilling. As the tides of World War II shifted, Grush alleges that Pope Pius XII personally informed the United States about the craft's existence. The U.S., in turn, launched a covert operation to retrieve the object and bring it to American soil, possibly kickstarting decades of secret research under what would become the Majestic 12 and Black Budget. Aerospace programs. No photographs, no official confirmations, just testimony, references to classified documents, and centuries of Vatican secrecy. And if that sounds outlandish, consider this: Grush testified under oath before the U.S. Congress. He claims he has seen classified reports, interviewed over 40 military and intelligence officials, and has been intimidated for speaking out. But the Vatican? They remain silent. Not a confirmation, not a denial, just silence. Why would the Vatican be involved at all? It might seem odd that the Catholic Church would be entangled in a UFO story, but this is where things get fascinating. The Vatican is not just a religious institution, it is a sovereign state with one of the oldest and most sophisticated intelligence networks on Earth. It has survived empires, wars, and political upheavals, all while maintaining diplomatic ties with nations around the world, including the US during wartime. So if a potentially non-human craft crashed on European soil during the rise of Nazi Germany, who would Mussolini trust to discreetly notify America? The answer, the Pope, a spiritual leader with global reach and a conduit to the Allied forces. The Vatican, always neutral, always watching. This connection between otherworldly technology, national security, and religious authority begins to feel less like fiction and more like carefully erased history. The 2007 Vatican UFO sighting. Fast forward to June 7, 2007. Tourists in St. Peter's Square report seeing a glowing orb hovering above the Vatican. Cell phone footage was captured brief, shaky, but unmistakable. It was hovering silently for minutes before vanishing into the night sky. The media barely touched it. Local police offered no comment. And the Vatican? Absolute silence. This wasn't a rural sighting in the middle of nowhere. It happened over one of the most surveilled and photographed religious landmarks on the planet, with tourists, cameras, and pilgrims all watching. So how does something that visible disappear from public consciousness? Simple. It's ignored, buried in silence, wrapped in mystery. The Vatican's secret archives. A potential UFO repository? If the Church did know about extraterrestrial encounters or even recovered technology, where would they store it? The answer lies in the Vatican Apostolic Archive, formerly known as the Vatican Secret Archive. With over 50 miles of shelving and documents going back more than 1,200 years, it's one of the most restricted and controlled knowledge vaults on Earth. Very few are granted access. Even fewer are allowed to publish what they find. From the trial transcript of Galileo to letters from Mary, Queen of Scots, the archive holds the power to reshape history. Some researchers claim that certain sections are completely off-limits, even to approved scholars, possibly because they contain records of non-human encounters, supernatural artifacts, or even classified Vatican scientific collaboration. Is it possible that documents relating to the Magenta crash or other unexplained aerial phenomena are hidden here? Is that why Pope Pius XII supposedly contacted the US to remove something too dangerous for the world to see? Why this matters, especially to the US? For American viewers, this isn't just about aliens or secret archives in Rome. This is about the intersection of religion, national security, and global influence. If a foreign religious power helped smuggle non-human technology into US hands, it raises massive questions. How long has the truth been hidden? Has this technology been used or weaponized? And what has the Church traded for its silence? We now have whistleblowers, congressional hearings, Pentagon admissions, yet one voice remains missing: the Vatican. And maybe that silence speaks louder than any testimony ever could. If the Vatican has kept secrets from the stars, what's stopping them from keeping secrets from time itself? Could they be hiding a machine that sees the past? A window into history that not only confirms prophecy, but threatens the very foundation of human belief? That's exactly where we're headed next. Because as impossible as it sounds, one Vatican priest claimed he watched the crucifixion of Christ through a machine. Time. It's the one thing we're all bound to. No matter your faith, your nation, or your beliefs, it marches forward, unbending and untouchable. Or does it? Buried deep in the archives of Vatican lore is a claim so extraordinary, so unbelievable, that it defies every known law of science. And yet, it was made not by a fringe theorist or sci-fi novelist, but by a respected Benedictine monk, Father Pellegrino Ernetti. According to Ernetti, the Vatican once possessed a machine capable of seeing through time, a device not for traveling, but for viewing the past like a holographic film, live, real, and terrifyingly accurate. They called it the chronovisor. The man behind the claim, Father Ernetti. Father Pellegrino Ernetti wasn't your average parish priest. He was a brilliant scholar, an exorcist, and a musician, deeply involved in the study of ancient sacred texts and Gregorian chant. He also worked closely with physicists and linguists in elite circles of the Church. In the 1950s and 60s, Ernetti claimed he was part of a secret Vatican project, a collaborative effort involving 12 scientists, including a Nobel Prize-winning physicist, rumored by some to be Enrico Fermi, and famed rocket scientist Wernher von Braun. Their goal? To create a device that could tune into the electromagnetic residues left behind by all historical events. Ernetti said time leaves behind traces, like light echoes. With the right frequency, the right arrangement of materials, and advanced lenses and antennas, these echoes could be viewed like recordings. The past, quite literally, never left. What did the chronovisor reveal? According to Ernetti, the chronovisor could display any past moment in stunning detail. The team reportedly watched speeches by Napoleon, performances from ancient Rome, and most controversially, the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. Yes, Ernetti claimed to have seen the moment Christ was nailed to the cross, heard his voice, observed the crowds, and even captured a photograph of the scene. That photo did surface, a blurry, sepia-toned image of a man writhing on a wooden cross, surrounded by indistinct figures. Critics were quick to denounce it. Some claimed it was a fake, an altered image of a 19th century statue from a church in Italy. Others claimed it was a distraction, disinformation to discredit a deeper truth. And then, silence. Ernetti never offered physical evidence of the machine itself. No blueprints, no schematics, just his word. Before his death in 1994, he allegedly confessed to fabricating parts of the chronovisor story. But in his final hours, according to close confidants, he also whispered, "The machine is real, but the world is not ready." Why would the Vatican hide a time device? If the chronovisor ever existed, it would be one of the most powerful tools in human history, not just a machine, but a weapon. Think about it. Religious validation. The Church could confirm or deny the events of Scripture. Political leverage. Governments could unearth truths thought buried forever. Social collapse. What happens when people can see unfiltered history, especially the parts institutions have tried to erase? The Vatican's stance? Complete silence. They have never confirmed nor denied the existence of the chronovisor. And that, perhaps, is more chilling than outright denial. Because if it were fake, why not just say so? Unless they fear it might still be out there, or worse, still in use. Echoes of a pattern. The chronovisor story doesn't exist in isolation. It's part of a larger Vatican pattern. Secret knowledge, inaccessible. Archives and mystical technology kept under lock and key. There are ancient maps that seem to show the Earth from orbit. Lost Gospels suppressed for centuries. Documents in the Vatican archives that remain restricted to this day, not for public safety but for control. And perhaps the chronovisor was one device that slipped too far into legend. But here's the part most forget. Ernetti never claimed it could see the future, only the past. Still, that raises a terrifying question. If the Vatican once had the ability to watch the past with precision, what other technologies might they have developed since? What if something else was built? What if they've moved beyond watching to influencing? Now imagine this. A secret device proves the crucifixion of Christ. Another confirms or denies the miracles of saints. Others expose how rulers rose to power or how truth was erased. What do you do with that kind of power? You either share it or hide it forever. And perhaps the Vatican, ever protective, ever strategic, chose the second path. But the chronovisor is just one example of time being rewritten. Because what if there are parts of our timeline that weren't merely observed, but manufactured? Which brings us to the next mystery, a theory that doesn't just challenge church authority, but time itself. Because some now believe that 300 years of human history may never have happened at all. If the Vatican once possessed a device to observe time, the chronovisor, then the next question becomes far more dangerous. What if they didn't just observe history, but helped rewrite it? That's the core of one of the most radical and controversial historical theories ever proposed, the phantom time hypothesis. A theory that doesn't just suggest hidden truths, but fabricated centuries. The phantom time hypothesis was introduced in the 1990s by German historian and publicist Herbert Illig. His bold assertion, the years between 8614 and 8911, nearly 3 full centuries, were inserted into the historical record. According to Illig, this phantom time was fabricated during the reign of Holy Roman Emperor Otto III, Pope Sylvester II, and Byzantine Emperor Constantine VII. Their supposed motive? To rewrite the calendar and place Otto III at the symbolic beginning of the second millennium, AD 1000, by inventing entire eras, rulers, and events. That means, if the theory were true, Charlemagne never existed. Entire wars, reforms, and political structures were created on paper to legitimize imperial power. Sounds insane, but some of the reasoning is unsettling. Architectural gaps. Fewer buildings or archaeological layers exist from this phantom period. Inconsistencies in calendars. Some ancient timekeeping systems don't sync properly with our current Gregorian calendar. Document forgeries. Historians acknowledge that many medieval documents, especially papal records, were forged to support church claims to land, authority, and relics. Could it be that the most powerful institution of the era, the Vatican, participated in reshaping time itself? Let's break this down. In the early Middle Ages, Europe was fragmented, chaotic, and illiterate. Very few people could read or challenge official records. The Catholic Church controlled both literacy and legitimacy. It dictated what was recorded and what was burned. If a pope, an emperor, and a scholar king wished to insert centuries into the timeline, who could possibly stop them? The Vatican also maintained the monasteries, which were the only centers of historical copying and preservation. And unlike modern governments, the Church wasn't just religious. It was the main source of law, timekeeping, and authority across Europe. Is it really so impossible to believe that history may have been edited? After all, rewriting timelines wasn't unusual. The Gregorian calendar we use today, enforced by Pope Gregory XIII in 1582, removed 10 days from the calendar to correct astronomical drift. If days can be erased, what's stopping centuries? Most historians dismiss the phantom time hypothesis as pseudo-history. They argue that Chinese and Islamic records independently confirm events in those phantom centuries. Astronomical data, like eclipses, align with traditional dating. Some artifacts have been carbon dated to those centuries. But even critics admit forgeries, errors, and inconsistencies plague the medieval record. Entire documents that supported church land claims in Europe have been proven false, including the infamous donation of Constantine, a fabricated decree giving the Pope supreme authority in the West. So if history was forged once, why not again? If even parts of the phantom time hypothesis are accurate, the implications are devastating. We may be living in the wrong year. Major historical figures might be fictional or exaggerated. The Vatican may have helped shape not just religious belief, but time itself to fit a narrative. And maybe, just maybe, this manipulation wasn't meant to deceive maliciously, but to control a chaotic world, to reframe legacy, or to erase threats. If you control time, you control memory. And if you control memory, you control truth. But manipulating records is one thing. What happens when the evidence is physical, unburned, incorruptible, impossible to explain? For centuries, the Vatican has been home to some of the most revered objects in Christianity: fragments of wood, believed to be from the true cross, bones claimed to belong to saints, and relics sealed in gold-lined vaults beneath cathedrals. But what if some of these holy artifacts don't just symbolize faith? What if they defy science itself? From incorruptible bodies to misidentified mummies, from ancient bones hidden in secret chambers to objects said to be cursed. This chapter dives into the Church's most controversial relics, where miracles and manipulation seem to intertwine. In May 2023, a startling discovery emerged from a Benedictine abbey in rural Missouri. While preparing to move the remains of Sister Wilhelmina Lancaster, a Black Catholic nun who died in 2019, members of her community opened her wooden coffin and were stunned. Despite being buried without embalming and having spent 4 years underground in a moist wooden coffin, her body was remarkably intact. Her face, hands, and habit showed no expected signs of decay. News of the Incorrupt nun spread quickly, drawing thousands of pilgrims to the site. Some began calling it a miracle, pointing to Catholic tradition that holds incorruptibility as a sign of sainthood. The Vatican, however, remained cautious. They neither confirmed nor denied the miracle. No official investigation was launched, and yet, the silence spoke volumes. This wasn't the first time the Church encountered bodies that refused to rot. Catholic lore includes several saints whose bodies remained preserved long after death. Saint Bernadette of Lourdes, whose face remains visible beneath glass in France. Saint Catherine Labour, whose body lies intact after nearly 150 years. Saint John Vianney, found incorrupt in the 20th century. But are these truly miracles? Skeptics argue that environmental factors, low temperatures, sealed tombs, chemical composition of the soil can create accidental mummification. But others point out that these cases defy even those explanations. The real question is, why does the Vatican hesitate to authenticate these events? Do they fear scientific scrutiny? Or is the mystery itself part of the strategy, keeping the faithful wondering? In stark contrast to incorrupt saints stands the bizarre and unsettling case of the Vatican's fake mummies. In 2018, advanced X-ray and CT scans were performed on 2 ancient mummies held in the Vatican museums. What they discovered was shocking. The remains were medieval fakes, human skeletons arranged and wrapped to appear as ancient Egyptian artifacts, likely constructed in the 14th or 15th centuries. Their bones didn't match their supposed age, and several anatomical inconsistencies suggested that these mummies were forgeries created during a time when religious relics and curiosity with Egypt were booming across Europe. Were these forgeries created to deceive the faithful, or were they obtained in good faith, passed off as authentic through generations? Either way, it raises unsettling questions. How many other Vatican artifacts are not what they claim to be? And if some relics are fraudulent, what does that mean for the ones still venerated on altars? Beneath St. Peter's Basilica, in a catacomb chamber known as the Vatican Necropolis, lie fragments of bone that the Church claims belong to St. Peter himself, the rock upon which Jesus said he would build his church. Discovered in 1939 during an excavation ordered by Pope Pius XII, the bones were hidden away for decades before, finally being displayed publicly in 2013 by Pope Francis. But here's the catch. No independent scientific verification has been permitted. No DNA testing, no carbon dating, no peer-reviewed analysis. Some, like the Shroud of Turin, have been tested, debated, and endlessly disputed. Others are too sacred or too fragile to ever be examined. But here's the issue. In some cases, there are multiple versions of the same relic. Take the True Cross. By the Middle Ages, so many churches claimed to possess a piece of it that Protestant. Reformer John Calvin once joked, if all the fragments were gathered together, they would form a large ship. How does the Church handle this contradiction? They don't. Most relics are authenticated through tradition, not science. A bishop's declaration is often considered sufficient. But in an age of DNA databases and radiocarbon dating, does that still hold? Or does it reveal something deeper? That the Church isn't just preserving belief, it's protecting a narrative. Incorrupt saints, forged mummies, hidden bones. These aren't just relics. They're symbols of power, reminders that the Vatican doesn't just manage theology. It manages reality. When science begins to conflict with faith, what does the Church choose to preserve? The evidence or the illusion? And if bodies and relics can be manipulated, hidden, or glorified, what else is being hidden in plain sight? Because if a relic can be faked, a reformer pope can be silenced. For most, the Vatican represents sacred order, a fortress of divine doctrine, protecting the spiritual lineage of the Church. But beneath the robes, relics, and rituals lies a shadow side, a long, hidden relationship with the forbidden. We're not just talking about controversial texts or heretical gospels. We're talking about books of magic, summoning rituals, and whispers of demonic forces. Knowledge so dangerous that the church may have locked it away, not to deny it existed, but to keep it from us all. At the center of this mystery is one of the most infamous books in occult legend, the Grand Grimoire, also known as Le Dragon Rouge, the Red Dragon, said to have originated in the 15th or 18th century. Depending on the source, this book is believed to contain rituals for summoning Lucifer, commanding demons, and acquiring unimaginable power. Its chapters read like a guidebook for the damned, complete with invocations, dark symbols, and forbidden prayers. What makes it even more chilling? Some researchers claim that an original copy of the Grand Grimoire is housed deep within the Vatican secret archives, stored not to protect the public from its evil, but possibly so the church can study it or use it. No official confirmation has ever been given, but oral traditions passed down by occultists, priests turned scholars, and even 19th century exorcists say the church obtained the text centuries ago, fearing its instructions could open doors no human should ever walk through. If true, it would mean that the most holy institution on earth is also the guardian of the most unholy book ever written. The answer lies in an uncomfortable truth. To fight evil, you must first understand it. Over the centuries, the church has dealt with exorcisms, demonic possession, and what it describes as supernatural warfare. The Vatican even has an official exorcist corps and its own training programs in Rome. But where do those rituals come from? Could some of the church's own methods, its ancient prayers, its purification rites, have been adapted from darker sources? Could they be reverse-engineered from texts like the Grand Grimoire? If the devil is real, as the church insists, wouldn't his methods be worth studying? Or worse, using? To fully understand how such forbidden knowledge could be kept secret, you need to know about the most mysterious library in the world, the Vatican Apostolic Archive, formerly the Secret Archive. This isn't a dusty library with open doors. It's a vault of power, containing over 50 miles of shelving, millions of documents, and a history stretching over 1,200 years. Entry is by exclusive permission only. No independent journalist, no curious theologian, no UFO researcher gets in without the highest clearance. And while some famous documents, like the trial of Galileo or letters from Mary, Queen of Scots, have been released to the public, the vast majority remains unseen. What's in the restricted section? Rumors swirl, letters about extraterrestrial encounters, texts from lost civilizations, forbidden books like the Gospel of Judas or the First Apocalypse of James, artifacts said to contain cursed relics, occult symbols, or even maps to ancient power centers. And maybe, just maybe, the Grand Grimoire itself. So here we are, between prayer and possession, between relic and ritual. The Vatican stands not just as a guardian of holiness, but as a gatekeeper of ancient, dangerous knowledge. And when knowledge becomes too powerful, it must be locked away or silenced. Which brings us to our next chapter, a pope who asked too many questions. A bank scandal shrouded in mystery, a death after just 33 days in office. Was Pope John Paul I just unlucky? Or did he discover something the church couldn't allow him to expose? In the long, shadowy corridors of Vatican history, some mysteries whisper louder than others, but none echo with more suspicion, more unanswered questions, and more potential danger than the sudden death of Pope John Paul I. He was the smiling pope, beloved by the people and known for his humility, wit, and refusal to be controlled. And yet, just 33 days after becoming pope in 1978, he was found dead in his bed. No alarm, no autopsy, just a quiet official statement: heart attack. But the contradictions began piling up almost immediately. The Vatican's initial statement claimed that John Paul I was found by a secretary. But later, it was revealed that it was a nun who discovered his body, a breach of protocol in the all-male hierarchy of the Vatican. The time of death kept shifting in official reports. Some claimed he was in perfect health. Others whispered that he had complained of chest pains. Still, no medical examination was ever conducted. No autopsy, by Vatican law not required, which raises one terrifying question. What if he was silenced? Shortly before his death, Pope John Paul I reportedly began investigating the Vatican Bank, which at the time was embroiled in shady dealings, money laundering, and connections to Banco Ambrosiano, a private Italian bank that would later collapse under a cloud of scandal. At the heart of it all was Archbishop Paul Marcinkus, the head of the Vatican Bank, a man with rumored ties to the Mafia, Freemasonry, and several European financial crime syndicates. John Paul I had drawn up a list of high-ranking clerics he intended to remove. Some reports claim he planned to expose and purge corruption at the highest levels, but he never got the chance. Marcinkus was never officially charged, but he was investigated. Roberto Calvi, the head of Banco Ambrosiano and nicknamed God's Banker, was later found hanged under a bridge in London. His death was ruled a murder staged as suicide. And Pope John Paul I? He received no justice, only a tomb. If a pope could be removed, what else could the Vatican hide beneath layers of faith? Because behind the holiness lies a city of stone and bones. After everything we've uncovered, from UFO crashes hidden beneath the seal of papal discretion, to time viewing, machines erased from history, to saints who do not decay, popes who die mysteriously, and books said to summon Lucifer himself, one haunting question remains. Is the Vatican truly protecting humanity from dangerous truths, or is it curating reality for its own purposes? Throughout history, the Church has presented itself as a shepherd of souls, a guardian of moral order. But at what point does protection become control? The Vatican Apostolic Archive, with over a millennium of sealed knowledge, remains inaccessible to most of the world. Its treasures, unknown. Its documents, untouchable. The secrets, unfathomable. For some, this is reassurance, proof that sacred wisdom is kept safe from misuse. For others, it's a red flag. What isn't the public allowed to know? And more importantly, why? Is it because some truths are too complex for belief? Or because belief, once shaken, can't be restored? Maybe the answer is both. Maybe the Church is walking a tightrope between faith and fear, between guidance and gatekeeping. What we do know is this: documents can be forged, histories can be written or erased, bodies can be preserved or replaced, and truth, it can be kept under lock and key for centuries. So the final question is not just about the Vatican, it's about us. Do we still trust institutions to decide what we should believe? Or is it time to demand to see behind the curtain? Because the longer a secret stays buried, the louder it screams to be uncovered. We've explored forbidden texts, incorrupt bodies, whispered conspiracies, and secrets hidden behind Vatican walls. But what if this is just the beginning? For every answer, 10 more questions remain. And the deeper we dig, the more reality itself begins to feel rewritten. If these mysteries stirred something in you, if they made you question what's truth, what's myth, and who decides, then don't stop here. Watch our deep dive into the 2025 prophecy, a monk's warning that came true, where a 1,000-year-old scroll may have predicted our future and our fate. Or explore more in the Unsolved Mysteries playlist, where lost civilizations, ancient symbols, and suppressed knowledge await. Like this video, subscribe and tap the bell icon, because the Vatican's not the only one keeping secrets, and this journey has only just begun.